At the Academy for Offensive Mages, everyone agrees on one thing. There is no place for healers here. But our protagonist thinks otherwise. Win is the best healer, yet he's still enrolled in this academy. Everyone assumed he would fail miserably. One teacher even decided to prove it by setting up a mock battle. As soon as the match started, the instructor used earth magic to trap Win, but Win easily dodged every attack, boosting his speed with healing magic. The teacher almost caught him in an earth trap, but Win dodged it again. Then he switched to the offensive. He closed the distance and attacked with his dagger. Of course, the attack was useless. The teacher covered himself in earth armor. It was impenetrable. He was confident that a weak healer, with no offensive magic, couldn't even touch him. But Win knew how to deal with this. In this world, most mages limit their own power because their bodies can't handle all that energy. Surpassing that limit would shatter their bodies. But if Win removes that limit, he can release a massive amount of power at the cost of destroying his own body, and he is totally fine with that. He's a healer after all. Win lunged forward with an enhanced punch. His arm was crushed. As he punched straight through the teacher's earth armor, the teacher didn't even have time to react. He was knocked out instantly. So why is a healer in this academy? Because in his past life, everyone else was useless, and Win died because of it. This is what happened back then. You'd think that doing a great job would get you the respect you deserve from your bosses, right? Well, that wasn't the case for our guy. He was backstabbed by his superiors just for being too good. Win was just an average guy, with extraordinary healing abilities, a one-of-a-kind power that only he possesses in the entire world. He can heal even the most horrific injuries, like it's child's play. Losing an arm, no biggie, man. He can regrow it from a stump in just seconds. Currently, he's serving alongside the last remaining soldiers, on the front lines, fighting against the demon army, led by the Demon Kings, the very force responsible for laying waste to the kingdom of Granban. The soldiers are fighting with everything they've got. He tries his best to push back the demonic forces that have destroyed the rest of the world. As for our boy, he has zero combat experience. So, he was assigned to treat the wounded, basically dragging them back from the brink of death. But let's be real. These mere mortals stand no chance against the terrifying creatures, rising from the depths of hell. That's why the soldiers kept coming back with missing limbs, and our guy just kept diligently healing them. However, in the end, the soldiers grew weary. From having to fight over and over again, only to get mangled once more, they accepted their brutal reality. They were cooked. They'd rather die on the battlefield to end this living hell, and that's the exact reason. Our boy got stabbed by his own captain. The captain believed Win didn't understand the pain and horror that the soldiers had to endure. Every time they were forced back to the front, eventually the desperate soldiers abandoned the line, allowing giant monsters to begin sacking what was left of the kingdom. Win watched helplessly as everyone died before his eyes, watching his homeland crumble, staring up at that massive dragon. Finally, he also realized the horror that those soldiers had to endure. In that very moment, his greatest strength became his deepest regret. If only he had the ability to fight on the battlefield, he could have ensured the survival of those around him. With a burning desire to protect the kingdom with his own two hands, our guy literally picked up a pebble from the ground and started charging at the dragon. Of course, his pathetic attempt to fight a mighty dragon with just a stone led to his death. However, predictably enough, he woke up nearly 5 years in the past, right before he received the title of the world's greatest healer, a title he would later come to loathe. Determined not to repeat his past regrets, he decided to enroll in an academy specializing in offensive magic instead of healing, and his top choice for an academy was a school dedicated solely to the arts of war. In this world, the healing arts and offensive magic arts cannot coexist, forcing young mages to pick a single path. However, Win decided to break this unwritten rule and achieve what he failed to do. In his previous life, AI voice from VB.VN, he plans to use his past knowledge to train himself so that he doesn't just know how to heal, but also how to fight on his own. To start, he must enroll in one of the most prestigious academies this world has to offer, Swarth Academy. It is believed that this academy can nurture young talents into top-tier offensive magic users. Not to mention, most talented battle mage in Win's previous life was also a graduate of this very academy. However, there's a catch. Win is a healing mage, so getting into school won't be easy at all. Normally, nobles drop a fortune to get their dim-witted children into this academy, but our boy is currently dead broke. Even if he started making a living with his healing skills, he still wouldn't be able to save enough before the registration deadline hits. As he's pondering his difficult situation, his younger sister walks into the room. Seeing his sister alive brings tears to his eyes. Seeing his reaction, the little girl assumes her big brother must have a stomachache, and that's why he's crying. He quickly wipes his tears and tells a white lie, claiming that something just flew into his eye. However, deep down he can hardly contain his joy. Seeing his sister alive and well, he vows to protect his sister this time from the disaster that took her life before, and not just her. He will make sure to protect everyone he couldn't save in the past. Suddenly an idea flashes through his mind. It seems he has found his next move. But before we continue, here's a little background on the Magic Academy Federation. It's an organization that oversees all magic academies in the kingdom, responsible for issuing regulations and curriculum for the entire magic education system. At this time, the president of the Federation is also the principal of Swast Academy, but for some reason, the president has completely stopped caring about the Federation. The reason soon becomes clear. It's because of his sick granddaughter Mary, by the way. The name of this doting grandfather is Analu Go Grand, president of the Federation of Magic Academies and principal of Swast Academy. The old man promised the little girl that he would find a talented healing mage who could free her from her suffering. However, in our boy's previous life, his granddaughter passed away because the president couldn't find a talented mage in time. That's exactly why my boy snuck straight into the president's granddaughter's room. Talk about convenient. Our guy didn't even need to introduce himself to the president, who was already there. The old man already knew about the scholarship student from Helix. After all, Win is famous throughout the kingdom for his exceptional talent in healing magic. This is exactly why the president felt it was beneath someone of such high status to be sneaking around like a common thief. It was just inappropriate. In his head, Win admitted he was right. Maybe if he didn't have the experience from his past life, he wouldn't have dared to invade someone else's private space. But then again, formal procedures were a luxury that they simply couldn't afford. Right now, he had to get in there because only he could save the girl. Of course, the old man knew nothing comes for free, and he wanted this young man to state his intentions clearly. Win stressed that time was of the essence. Healing the girl was more important than negotiating. Finally, the old man gave the green light for what our boy needed. He sat by the bedside ready to treat her, but the intense gaze of the old man caught his attention. He was staring straight into our guy's soul. The president was basically sending a signal that just one wrong move, and our boy would be toast. So Win took a deep breath, determined not to screw this up, and began to cast his healing magic. While casting the spell, he realized that his mana levels had dropped compared to his past life. But what mattered more was the perfect execution of the magical formulas for healing, which luckily he remembered perfectly. A moment later, the granddaughter finally opened her eyes. The first thing she noticed was the Prince Charming, who had saved her from the brink of death. She was totally flustered and shy, turning her face away. Meanwhile, the grandfather still couldn't believe that his granddaughter had actually woken up from her coma. The girl confirmed she was finally awake. She even said that for the first time in years, she hadn't felt this healthy. Tears welled up in the doting grandfather's eyes. Out of pure joy, the worries that had weighed him down for so long were finally lifted, and it was all thanks to our boy. A while later, both men sat down in the living room. After expressing his gratitude, the old man was ready to grant the boy any wish. Win assured him that he wouldn't ask for anything crazy. His wish was well within the principal's power. By now, everyone knows that no one can match Win in healing arts. He is at the peak, with no more room to grow. That's exactly why he wants to explore a different skill set. He wants to enroll at Squash Academy. Naturally, the old man found this absurd. The idea of someone giving up their God-given talent to dive into a completely unknown field sounded pretty unusual. But since the old man made a promise, he's sticking to it. He shook the young man's hand, vowing to uphold his end of the bargain. Somewhere in the academy, rather toxic teacher is reviewing our boy's admission file. He thinks the principal's move is quite bold, recruiting a healer with zero offensive skills into a combat school. Finally, the day of the entrance ceremony arrived, and the new students gathered in the academy's grand hall. Up on the high podium, the principal was there to hype up and glorify his academy. SWAT Academy is an all-boarding school specializing in offensive magic, featuring a unique curriculum. Its massive campus boasts many training grounds, and it gets even better with state-of-the-art research facilities and a gigantic library. That makes it stand out even more. Influential alumni remain active, even after graduating, helping the academy. They can receive various forms of support from the kingdom. To put it simply, there is no other academy that provides an environment like this to study the complexities of offensive magic. Don't forget that our boy is just a regular healer enrolling in this academy, something totally unprecedented until now. So it goes without saying that the road ahead will be full of thorns, but my man is ready to face whatever comes his way, as long as he becomes the offensive mage he dreams of being. However, reality is often far from expectations. The first class after the entrance ceremony begins, and Win is clearly struggling hard. he has to hit the target with a fire-type spell. Somehow, he managed to trigger a fire spell, but it fizzled out the moment it appeared, and this isn't the first time it's happened. To make matters worse, his teacher is a total piece of work, trying to bully our boy by exploiting his weaknesses. Win can only join the actual class if he manages to hit the dummy. Until he achieves this, he's forced to keep grinding at the training field on the other side of the school building. Win insists that his teacher should at least show him the basics, otherwise he'll never learn properly. But it's clear from the jump that this teacher has a major grudge against our boy. To him, wasting time teaching a healer isn't the best use of his time. Win begs him to at least let him into the library so he can learn something from the theory. Once again, that jerk insults our boy for being just a healer, saying they don't have any materials that someone like him could even use. Taking advantage of the situation, a blonde punk attacked the healer with cheap magic shots from behind, knocking Win to the ground. The guy, poor guy, he didn't even see that sneak attack coming. But the bully thought that was just more reason to mess with the healer. Because he was so weak, the bully flexed about the Academy's offensive rankings, saying any weak healer like Win should just beat it for even daring to enroll. This is the first time I've seen a teacher vibe with a bully to gang up on a student. The two of them tormented Win as if he were the lowest piece of trash in their eyes. One night, our boy looked totally burnt out on a bench. His efforts to learn offensive magic so far have all gone down the drain. He knew it would be a major hassle. Just because of the difference between healing arts and offensive magic, both pull from their own energy sources. Mana is the power of the mind, the ultimate weapon of a mage. Triggered through specific formulas, mana also moves according to the caster's will. Using that mana to create explosions or firepower gives you offensive magic. On the other hand, healers possess static mana, but that's where Sword Academy comes into play. They are the best at training offensive mages, so there must be a way for him to refine dynamic mana. Win is certain that he can control his mana in a way that can convert static mana into dynamic mana. The biggest roadblock on his path is that he can't even attend classes right now, because that jerk of a teacher won't let him. Win refuses to quit, hoping to meet the person who helped him in his past life, just for her sake alone. His choice to come to this academy might be worth all the struggle. Unfortunately, he can't just keep going in blind, so he starts brainstorming other ways. But suddenly, a familiar voice grills him for being out so late. When Win looks at this person's gorgeous appearance, he recognizes Veronica, an elite warrior who fought right by his side. She was one of the highest-tier offensive mages he had ever known, and in the end he had to endure the heartache of her loss during the tragic war. Fortunately, she's still alive in this regression timeline. But before they could even talk, this woman drew a sword that could slice through anything. This girl looks like a female Gojo, with the abilities of Sukuna. Having her point a sword at him wasn't exactly a vibe, but it turns out she was hunting a suspicious student on the campus grounds, making her wonder if Win was that troublesome student. Our boy quickly clarified that he was definitely not the one, because if she accidentally swung at him, he'd need another isekai regression from Chukun. She believed him, which let him breathe easy, and he asked to confirm if she really was Veronica. The woman felt a bit offended, because he was being way too extra calling her teacher, leaving him embarrassed and shocked. He knew she was older than him in his past life, but not by that much. It turns out she was actually a prodigy, who skipped grades and was promoted to professor instantly. This was honestly no surprise. Considering her God-tier talent, this was the chance Win had been waiting for. The shooting star, who could finally help him learn offensive magic. Win expressed interest in joining the classes of Veronica, knowing she was his last hope. He asked about the registration process, but she shot him down immediately. She said she had no open classes, because as a new teacher, her predecessor had already been promoted through multiple levels. She didn't know how everything worked here yet. For this year, Veronica's current role is acting as a TA to handle certain inquiries. The plan was clearly to use her youthful perspective to connect with students who are closer to her age. This would make her a fantastic mentor for them. However, what's eating at her is that no one dares to approach her for advice on anything at all. Our boy can tell exactly why. It's because this woman whips out her deadly weapon at the slightest inconvenience. But from his perspective, this is just a golden ticket to leverage Veronica. He doesn't even need to join her class, when he can just have her tutor him privately. So he asks her a question, knowing it's her job to answer, getting straight to the point. The guy asks how he should approach learning offensive magic as a healer. Through his words, Veronica immediately realizes that he is no ordinary student. After sensing his bizarre mana flow structure, now she remembers that this guy is the infamous freshman who joined the SW Academy after all these years. She even admits she's never seen a regular healer attempt to learn offensive magic. The good thing about SWU is that the Academy offers a way to cultivate something called kinetic mana. It's a foundation that our boy believes will be the perfect start for him. And when Veronica confirms its existence, Win gets hyped thinking he's actually got a shot. There's just one tiny problem. The woman bluntly tells him that a noob like him won't be able to learn offensive magic even with that method. This revelation completely floors our boy, especially when Veronica explains that he already has too much static mana. This means even if he cultivates kinetic mana from scratch, most of it will just convert and dissolve into static mana. And if he tries to cultivate kinetic mana using a different method, the clash of these two types of mana will make it impossible for him to use any offensive magic. Reality is looking pretty grim. The man basically switched academies for nothing, only to realize that there is absolutely no way for a regular healer to learn offensive magic. Win, starting to regret not getting a user manual when Chu-kun had him reincarnated. Well, he doesn't want to give up, even if it means becoming this Einstein of his generation to invent a whole new method. Thanks, Assistant Professor. As he was about to leave, Veronica suddenly stops him to finish her thought. She picks up from before, saying that while it's true healers can't use offensive magic, there is one exception. That could allow a healer to become an offensive mage. This girl is totally messing with his head, because even our boy can't wrap his mind around that logic. Veronica proves her point by showing off a specially engraved iron sword, a weapon built to slash and defeat enemies. Then she talks about the wooden bench next to them, which is meant for sitting on. In other words, this airhead professor is stating that water is wet and the floor is made of floor. But here's the plot twist. She lifts the bench and explains that even if she used it to beat someone to a pulp, it would still be a weapon. It's hilarious. Win starts wondering how this muscle mommy can lift such a heavy bench with those noodle arms. Anyway, Veronica's point is, even if something is created for one purpose, you can still use it however you want. To drive her point home, she uses her hand to gently pat his face, making the guy blush. This is most men's wet dream, until she flicks him super hard in the face, explaining how she just used her hand for two purposes. She ended up hitting him a bit too hard, but regardless, the point still stands. Same thing, just a different way to use it. Win's eyes finally light up. He starts wondering if he can use healing magic as an attack. This whole time, that idea never even crossed his mind. The main reason both sides of magic can't stand each other is the difference in their forms of mana. But in Veronica's eyes, this kid is built different. She thinks he took a huge leap forward by enrolling in the academy for offensive magic, and even his mana suggests that he isn't strictly just a healer. This was an observation even Win hadn't noticed himself, making him wonder if this was one of the abilities that Chu-kun had gifted him. Pressing her blade to his neck, she orders him to be self-aware and ignite the aggressive fire within his soul. If he can do that, he will become unstoppable and destroy anyone who stands in his way. The very next day, our boy is reflecting on the conversation with the teacher. Yesterday, she used various examples to prove her point, and what really blew him away was why she didn't seem to have any prejudice against regular healers. Then there was the fact that she could instantly come up with a logical theory. Win starts thinking that she herself might be using a similar method, but his train of thought is cut off by a rude instructor, calling him Mr. Healer. Today's class is actually special, because there's a series of one-on-one battles happening. He has the chance to participate along with the others, though whether he can actually use offensive magic or not is his own problem. The jerk teacher also finished the pairings, and wouldn't you know it, this guy matched our boy against Unpissed, that blonde jerk from the other day. Our boy isn't looking forward to this match against Unpissed, because that kid comes from a famous elite academy and has all the backing in the world. He's a silver spoon rich kid, but more than that, he's actually a powerful offensive mage. Unpissed assumes he'll win and starts trash-talking. He asks our boy if he's going to run home to mommy after getting his butt kicked. Our boy is trying his best not to let this idiot get under his skin. Even though he's from the future and knows he's just facing a child, it still pisses him off. The good thing is, Win wants to test Veronica's theory in reality, so he shows some interest in the fight. He gets the professor's attention and refuses to quit. Instead, our boy has a proposal. He says he has zero talent for offensive magic, which would make the match a waste of time. So he raises the stakes and flatly declares that he'll drop out of SW Academy if he loses this fight. The professor is thrilled to hear that, but the flip side is if our boy wins, he gets to join the regular classes. It's an insulting offer, but Unpissed is so arrogant he just laughs it off, saying the idea of a victory is absolutely ridiculous. He even thinks Win is living in a fantasy world on Delulu Island and has zero chance of winning. The instructor is fed up with them and accepts the deal, directing both contestants to their positions. He signals the start of the match, and Unpissed opens by calmly activating his offensive magic. He creates a barrage of glowing daggers. This is his specialty, known as dagger creation magic. Basically, this guy is a Wish.com Gilgamesh with a bunch of tiny baby swords as weapons. He hurls all those daggers at Win, shouting that a trashy healer has no way to defend himself. But our boy is just standing there chill as a Buddha, ready to activate his domain expansion. As soon as he triggers his technique, he's able to match the speed of the daggers and dodges all of them cleanly. This is a technique called life manipulation, which Win uses to control the very essence of living beings near him, boosting their HP to the absolute limit. But that's not all. He can also weaponize it, using this exact same method. Unpissed panics, calling it nothing but dumb luck. But our boy is still focusing his energy. In that stance, he catches a dagger from Wish.com Gilgamesh before swatting away all the others. Channeling his inner Shiru Emiya, those weapons are deflected, and haven't dealt a single point of damage yet. But our boy is just getting started, and with a single dagger, he's about to end this whole fight. The audience can't wrap their heads around what just happened. A healer using an attack is a total brain breaker for them. The truth is, Win used healing magic as an attack, and never touched offensive magic at all. Unpissed is backed into a corner, and caps again saying he's just been holding back. Apparently this guy can spam even more daggers if he wants, as if that's going to make a difference. Then he unleashes a golden rain of daggers on the healer in a rage, but our boy casually cuts down every single dagger one by one. Finishing his defensive play, they all shatter across the floor. Unpissed still thinks he's a big shot, so he increases the size of his tiny baby daggers. And damn, this camera angle looks a bit sus if you ask me. Anyway, Win realizes fighting Unpissed is a pain in the neck because of his talent and magic IQ. To crank up the complexity and firepower, Unpissed makes his daggers spin like crazy, basically launching a missile straight at our boy. Man's borrowing Sukuna's Fuga fire arrow move, only for Win to block the whole damn thing. Unpissed can't steal any more moves from other anime series now, and can only howl in despair. Meanwhile, our boy thinks he should gradually ramp up his power. The intense projectile is deflected with ease to Unpissed's total shock. Before he can do anything else, Win gets behind him using Goku's instant transmission, promising to heal him up after this. Then he ruthlessly delivers the finishing blow. But the instructor intervenes and creates a massive earth wall between the two. The instructor declares the match over and tells them to step aside for the next pair. This defeat is a real humble pie for the arrogant noble, but Win is just happy that he can attend regular classes from now on. To the guy's frustration, this useless instructor ends it here. He heads off to reflect on his combat experience. Finally, he has created his own version of offensive magic, and it's strong enough to take down an elite mage, all thanks to Veronica's guidance. As for the loser, he's getting help from the instructor. Unpissed asks his teacher not to tell his father about this match. They're both acting like salty Redditors. He just can't accept the L. In the next scene, we see Win in the classroom. He can join the classes here and sharpen his understanding of offensive magic. The instructor enters the room and glares at Win before starting the lesson. So far, his classes have been pretty basic. Basically, one homeroom teacher handles all the classes. Win is most intrigued by the magic tool crafting class, recalling a similar concept at the Healing Academy. Today's lesson is on crafting ice bombs. The instructor hands out materials for the students to assemble and handle. Win remembers that he never actually made weapons in his past life, only recovery items. But at the Offensive Academy, he's expected to forge weapons for battle. The mana used for this purpose would obviously be active mana. But when it comes to crafting, the nature of the mana doesn't really matter at all. That's why Win won't have any trouble, even with an abundance of static mana. And as he looks through the materials, he finds ice golem fragments and fire branch powder. Following the instructions, he mixes the pieces together, but they suddenly undergo a rapid reaction. Win ends up tossing the ice shard away using body enhancement, causing the small piece to detonate and burst into ice spikes. Our boy is pretty impressed, but this little stunt of his is seen as incredibly disrespectful. In class, the instructor chews him out and flatly says he's docking Win's points. The other bullies burst out laughing, especially Unpissed, which signals that he's in cahoots with the teacher. Win's next class is about to start on magical creatures. He gets a cute little salamander, while the instructor emphasizes that low-tier students need to listen closely. Our boy is a bit on edge. Being so close to a magical creature, this tiny killing machine shoots a fireball, forcing Win to deflect it. Actually, that was just something our boy imagined in his head. Still, things don't seem right, and Win starts to really understand what's going on. The instructors allowed him into the classes, but they're essentially hazing him in every single lesson. This means he won't be able to learn anything, so he has to do something about his situation. Once again, watching him from afar is a strange student, who seems to see the double standard happening here. The bullying continues without end. Win doesn't just have to defend himself against students, but also against the ridiculous trick questions outside the curriculum from the instructors. His grades are being tanked to the bottom, And even after school, he finds piles of trash scattered in his room. When he tries to confront the supervisor about it, the supervisor punishes him even harder by stripping away his dinner privileges. Our man is getting absolutely cooked. He collapses in his room, realizing this academy is full of haters. Just when he took one step forward, now he's facing a whole mountain of challenges to overcome. Once again, Win, understanding that his current rate of progress is paying off big time and he won't let these bullies get to him. The best part is that he fought one of them and actually won. Therefore, there's absolute proof that he can become the attack mage he's always dreamed of. Focusing on the positives, Win remembers that he managed to get the textbooks, so now he can review the assignments and study properly. The next day arrives, and to his total bewilderment, there's not a teacher or a single soul around. The instructor usually shows up at this hour, but there's only one other student near him. It's as if news of a sudden schedule change wasn't shared with certain students. Annoyed, Win stands up to strike up a conversation with the girl. He approaches her, startling her with his sudden move. Our boy just wants to know if the class schedule was changed overnight. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. The instructor hates certain students, and she's on that list too, so they're both screwed. She thinks it's a good idea for two bullied loners to stick together. Win can sense her fear, so he warmly extends his hand to offer his friendship. The girl is stunned and bows with absolute respect to him. She's introduced as Erica Glenn, the first friend Win has made at the new academy. She thinks it's perfectly normal that he doesn't have anyone by his side, since he joined the class late and is a healer to boot. Erica emphasizes how people always talk about how weak and pathetic healers are, leaving Win stunned. As for herself, she's not exactly popular either, despite being an attack mage. Looking at her situation, Win understands that harsh discrimination against healers seems to be the culture at Squash Academy. It's true that attack mages fight on the front lines, so they feel they have every reason to look down on the healers in the back. Even in his past life, Win had also become a famous healer for the kingdom. Back then, he had plenty of clout, but things are different here at this combat academy. Win will be swallowed whole by the academy's discrimination if he doesn't fight back. Erica asks about his intentions for coming to the combat academy. Gathering his thoughts, Win replies that he refuses to accept the reality of being a born healer and intends to join the front lines. His reason leaves her shook, but Win explains that he has his own personal reasons backing him up. As for Erica's own goals, it turns out she's from a minor noble family in the countryside. Since the family couldn't produce a son, her parents thought their lineage would end. Taking matters into her own hands, she figured that becoming a powerful combat mage could help her become the head of the family, through status alone. That's a relatable goal in Win's eyes. But Erica's problem is that she doesn't have a lick of magical talent. She also has no friends and gets bullied in class too. Fortunately, she's happy to befriend our boy, claiming that having an underdog around comforts her even when her own grades are low. The man is getting roasted from all sides, but she's just kidding. Either way, he reminds her that Erica's expectations will soon be met. Without much explanation, Win takes her to a different classroom, where the actual class is being held. The two of them find their way to the real class, only for the predictable instructor to mark them as late. Win apologizes for not knowing about the sudden schedule change, but this jerk is way too rigid and won't cut them any slack. To punish Win, he decides to hit him with another question. This is bad news. Erica already knows that our boy missed most of the previous classes, which means he'll be completely clueless. Looking at the board, Win breaks down the problem in his head, while the teacher emphasizes that points will be docked if he doesn't get it right. Unpissed mocks Win even more. I know you're on the verge of failing, but our boy is locked in. And so, he takes the chalk and starts scribbling away enthusiastically. His handwriting catches the attention of the whole class. Even Unpissed thinks this is just a desperate attempt to flex. Actually, Win has found the correct configuration. Lighting up the magic circle on the board, he surpassed all expectations, silencing the entire room, including his toxic instructor. The teacher was forced to admit it was the right answer, leaving Opie and Erica in total shock. No way the new kid solved the problem, especially after skipping every single class. Right after that annoying class, Erica immediately wanted to know how he solved that question. Win explained that it was actually pretty easy to solve, since he had already learned it from the textbook. He had already read the textbook, so he knew what to expect. What stunned her the most was that this man had finished the entire book in just one night. Damn, Win had only just read it for the first time, and had already speed-read the whole thing, praising it as one of the greatest books on magic. It covers basic and advanced applications of attack magic. Everything is presented in great detail. You can teach yourself everything, but without a certain understanding of magic. Reading this text is absolute torture. The good thing about Win is that he's always been a theory pro, so he could manage it without much trouble. He learned everything about attack magic in a single night, reading it like a fiction novel. While he found it fun, Erica was terrified. The book he just digested is the Academy's nightmare. Impossible to translate without a teacher's guidance. She began to regret her initial assumption when she called him a loser and realized she was the only one at the bottom here. The girl didn't want him to leave her behind in last place, while our boy reassured her that he would teach her anything she struggled with. After all, they're close classmates, and Erica flashes a radiant smile, feeling hyped to receive his help. The truth is, our boy came to school for his own goals, not to play house, or get all cozy with the power of friendship. But since he's flying solo, he's gonna need Erica. So he tells her about something he needs her help with. The upcoming class is General Attack Magic, a class he has never managed to pass. And the main reason why he couldn't join other classes, Erica thinks it'll be a breeze for him now, after he crushed Unpissed. But the reality is different. Win actually can't use General Attack Magic, like everyone else does. But he's got a big brain idea. This plan requires Erica's help for him to pull it off. In the next scene, the students gather at the training grounds again. When it comes to attack magic, there are two branches, general magic and unique magic. General magic refers to spells that are properly formulated, making them easily accessible through formulas, as opposed to their common use case. Unique magic comes from within the user, like Unpissed's special blade creation magic. The Academy's curriculum includes classes for both types of attack magic, for students to master. Of course, unique magic doesn't have one single correct answer, so for someone like our boy, this is actually his golden ticket to attend such classes and secure a win. Unfortunately, he struggles with learning general attack magic, and his teacher knows this all too well, taking full advantage of the situation. The instructor praises his theory skills and wonders how he'll perform. During the practical sessions, Win is supposed to fail this class. If he can't even use basic magic, the teacher emphasizes that this drill is no different from previous trials where the goal is to land a shot on the target. Once again, he looks down on Win. By calling it an extremely basic task, it means if you fail at something so fundamental here at the Academy, you won't be able to graduate. Win thinks to himself again. The teacher recalls how the boy applied healing magic to his offensive strikes, and how that healing magic buffs his overall physical stats. But this is different because Win can't use anything like offensive magic. He just wants this kid to get lost and quit his class. But our boy isn't going anywhere, and just smiles at the situation. The teacher is absolutely shook when he sees Win's hand engulfed in flames. There is no reason on earth that this kid should be able to cast magic like that. But don't be fooled. This is actually just a sneaky tactic used by our protagonist. His entire strategy relied on Erica creating a fireball, using her standard offensive magic version. After that, he deployed the fireball inside the tail of the salamander. Next, Win carefully used auto-heal to fan the flames, hiding them within his hands. Basically, he's doing what Gojo Satoru does with his reverse curse technique. To maintain infinity, it's infinite healing. But even then, Erica still doubts his approach, wondering what kind of person she's dealing with, not knowing that he was once the greatest healer in human history. Anyway, he stopped the healing magic right after opening his hand, making it look as if he had conjured a fireball from his palm. Next comes the easy part. He just needs to fire it at the target and take it down with precision. The teacher is shaking like a leaf. His student has made him look like a fool once again. The illusion was so good that he fully believed Win had actually cast offensive magic. This earned him an immediate passing grade, a round of applause from Erica, and left the rest of the onlookers completely confused. More than that, Win was fuming after class. He confronted the teacher to get some answers. Neither of them knew what was really going on. There was no logical way for Win to have learned standard offensive magic. Unpiss's ego was bruised because of the loss he suffered, and now this healer was taking things too far. He's willing to go as far as snitching to his father to shut the class down. Even the teacher was stunned by his determination, while the arrogant noble walked off ordering the teacher to do whatever it takes to get the healer out of their class. The scumbag teacher is now stuck in a dilemma, since breaking the rules comes with the risk of getting caught. Unfortunately, he also spent a lot of time grinding to get this academy job, so he can't afford to lose it now. Weighing the risks, the teacher decided that it's better to take the gamble and get rid of the healer, who was trying to make a name for himself at their academy. He's basically holding a lifelong grudge against a 15-year-old, and finally decided to take matters into his own hands. After class at the training grounds, the teacher finally summoned Win alone. He threatened our boy, but Win took it as a compliment, too naive to realize the situation he was in. The teacher shared that he wanted to crush the kid's confidence, especially after he had missed so many classes when he first arrived at the academy. That wasn't even our boy's fault, because it was this stupid teacher who refused to let him join those classes in the first place. Win snapped back, saying he'd gone over the materials with friends and self-taught, so there was nothing to worry about. But this teacher is being a total gatekeeper in his approach. and simply doesn't give a damn. Believing this new lesson is necessary for Win, a curriculum decided by him as the teacher. So here they are going to engage in a proper sparring match. Win finds it quite sus to have to fight a teacher, for no reason, and the teacher knows this is unfair, so he gives the boy a handicap. If Win can land even a single hit, he will be considered the winner of this little exam. With this advantage, the teacher expects the boy won't turn tail and run but will fight seriously. Of course, this clown never even considered the possibility of losing. He's just that confident in his own abilities. As for our boy, he is lost in thought, piecing the situation together. The kid accepts the terms of the duel, exactly as the teacher planned. The match begins immediately, with the teacher using earth magic from the ground. Luckily, Win has a bit of intel on the teacher's fighting style. He alone knows this guy specializes in earth magic, so he quickly dodges the first strike, but that strike morphs unpredictably, forcing him to dodge again. Win is being bombarded by countless attacks, yet he keeps evading with pinpoint precision. The teacher mocks him for doing nothing but dodging, but Win's current problem is dealing with the annoying earth magic that can be spammed continuously. Plus, the guy's attacks have an insane range, making him a totally different beast compared to Anbis. At the same time, the guy isn't done and seems to be tapping into Ultra Instinct. With every strike, Win closes the gap and charges toward the teacher, who activates even more earth magic, creating a wall from each side before slamming them together to turn the boy into a sandwich. This move seemed like the final blow, until he spotted his student plunging from the sky, with a dagger in hand. This was the only shot he had, so Win lunged, slamming the dagger into his teacher's head. Unfortunately, this man had created a durable armor that blocked the strike. The student was forced to dodge the teacher's next attack, creating distance once again. This little snake called his student pathetic and revealed his all-powerful iron armor. Even Win thought that name was cringe, while his teacher mocked him for using a knockoff version of standard offensive magic. He looked down on him, scolding and crushing his student's confidence for even daring to think about becoming an offensive mage. However, the humble yet confident student reminded the teacher that healing magic allowed him to study the human body in extreme detail. Through this, he understood that most humans hold back their strength so they don't kill themselves. Their own bodies can't withstand their full power, and exceeding that limit would cause their body to deteriorate. The teacher took it as an insult because Win was trying to lecture him. He acted all high and mighty, but the kid's point was actually very simple. If someone could remove the human body's limiters, they could unleash massive power at the cost of destroying their own body. But the great thing for Win is that he's a healer, so he's about to pull an Izuku Midoriya. He doesn't care if his hand gets shattered in the process. The boy's resolve left the teacher stunned as he calmly and coolly walked toward his teacher, who still thought his cringe armor would remain unscathed. Deku's about to save his... Oh wait, wrong story. Hold up, wrong show again. His teacher screamed as Win demolished his armor with his bare fists. He didn't just break the armor, he left the guy's face looking more beat up than Nganu in his fight against Anthony Joshua. Win reminded the dear teacher not to decide a student's fate, and feels a sense of warmth when recalling Veronica's guidance. She is the sole reason he was able to unlock such overwhelming power from the healing magic he already possessed. Win knows he can become much stronger. But while he's lost in thought, the sneaky teacher attacks him with another earth pillar. Fortunately, he manages to dodge it, but that isn't enough to quench the man's boiling rage. Win didn't expect to be blindsided like that, especially since he had already met the test's conditions. The teacher doubles down on his BS, claiming that since there are no witnesses to confirm it, it means technically the healer never actually landed a hit on him. He refuses to admit defeat at the hands of some healer, how annoying, and hurls even more earth magic at our boy. Win is starting to get really tired of this guy's I am the law crap, straight out of Sato Kaiba's playbook. But thanks to having his limiters removed, he rockets forward at high speed and zips past him again. The teacher can't even process Win's sudden advance as the boy swings a heavy fist. Win is ready to wreck him a second time. Even that cringe armor of his won't manifest in time to save him from this devastating blow. But then the punch stops right before flattening his face. The fist came to a halt, as if the flow of time itself had ceased. Win's fist presses into his face, humiliating the teacher, as he feels the intense pressure. This slow and degrading punch is even worse than taking the initial hit from before. This time, he can't even run or scream for his life. This scene is honestly hilarious, because this one punch takes up 50 panels. Finally, Win uses real force and sends the man flying, slamming him hard into the ground. All this time, the healer was using one of his healing tricks. He welcomes the instructor back to reality, explaining that only a brief moment has passed in the real world, but don't sweat it. Unlike his own master, who never explains a damn thing, Win properly shares what just went down. First, when Win threw that punch, he activated an illusion-enhancing incantation. This magic is actually meant to treat people with weakened senses like failing eyesight. But lately, our boy has been weaponizing it in combat to boost his speed and reaction time. Essentially, he can trigger it on his opponents, overstimulating their senses, to make them believe 1 second is actually 100 seconds. This makes the attack feel way more painful because it's brutal and pure torture. Finally, Win flashes a cute smile at his teacher and asks one last thing, wondering if he's passed the class now. Before the stuck-up instructor can even reply, Win grabs his shoulder threateningly, reminding him that he will wipe out every bit of discrimination the teacher holds against healers. The once harmless healer now looks like a demon king, emphasizing that his only goal is to enjoy his classes, which means if this guy or his students mess with him again, things will end very badly for him. Win finishes his proposal with a bright smile, concluding their encounter that evening. The instructor is seen pacing back and forth in a panic, wondering what kind of monster he just ran into. He used to believe all healers were weak as hell and existed only to obey frontline mages. But this guy is built different. He has top-tier combat skills and a terrifying bloodlust. Coincidentally, he bumps into the blonde brat, who is curious about the results of the training session. Unpissed smirks, believing the outcome was the boy's downfall, but then he gets shut down like a dog. The instructor was fed up with the constant yapping of this privileged trust fund brat and urged the noblemen not to mess with Win. It was for the good of them all, and their biggest mistake was assuming that Win was just some ordinary healer. Unpissed was taken aback by the advice and pulled the "Do you know who my father is" card again. But this time the instructor didn't flinch. Basically, he told the blonde kid to go ahead and snitch to daddy, all he wanted. Because in reality, if Unpissed actually had that much clout, he would have easily gotten rid of the healer a long time ago. The Omen family doesn't take orders from Unpissed, but it's absolutely certain that if they keep messing with the new kid, he will end them for good. Unpissed was fuming, unable to believe that the situation had turned south like this. After that epic beatdown, a few days passed. Class had just ended, and Win was chilling, because he could feel the blonde noble now acting very cautious around him. He wasn't pulling any more stunts or making comments. This way, our boy could finally focus on his classes, but he was still unsatisfied with the current situation. Right now, his ultimate goal is to prevent the future destruction of humanity. In the future, the only way to avoid such a dark fate is to become stronger. Sure, his healing magic helps him buff his body, but for now, he is limiting himself to just physical strikes. Basic strength and sensory buffs are good for illusions, but it's nothing compared to the diverse styles of offensive magic. Win realizes that he needs to create a completely new fighting style. To keep up, he explains this exact train of thought to the assistant professor. He seeks Veronica's guidance once again. Win's approach definitely needs some fine-tuning, but Veronica has something else she wants to say first. He hesitates, wondering what she's about to drop, but she actually congratulates him on everything he has achieved so far. Thanks to his contributions, the teachers haven't stopped buzzing about the healer, a healer who is keeping up with the academy's top classes. And that's no small feat, honestly. Some other teachers are clearly salty about his progress, which is to be expected, but it's interesting. Veronica hasn't actually revealed to anyone that she is the mastermind behind his improvement. She also never had a chance to mention it to the other teachers, since they just looked down on her for being so unconventional, even among their own ranks. Our boy feels relieved, because that means he won't be getting into any trouble. It was her advice that got him this far, and he wouldn't want her catching heat for it. The professor doesn't mind and admits that. Honestly, she's very grateful to him. Like she said before, healers never even try to turn their theories into reality. She draws her sword again, typical. She really loves doing that, and challenges our boy to a duel. Win clearly didn't see this move coming from Veronica, but she's truly curious to see where his level is at. It's the surest way to help him get stronger. But our boy is totally unprepared and scared out of his mind. The swordswoman insists that enemies won't wait, and lunges from her position. She appears like a bolt of lightning right in front of him to strike. Win barely manages to parry it at the very last second. He can hardly hold on to his weapon against her heavy-hitting attacks, and she continues to overwhelm him with a flurry of slashes. Despite using all his buffs and reaction speed spells, he can't even keep up with her. The thing about Veronica is she's more than just fast. This woman is lightning personified. Her blade moves gracefully from one swing to the next. This means in a battle of endurance, Win would be the one to go down first. Enduring those heavy hits, Win realizes he only has one shot to impress her by breaking past his limits with speed. This way he'll catch her off guard. Channeled energy into his heels, our boy lunges forward with his own thunderous ferocity. The professor didn't expect this move, just as he predicted, and just as the blade is about to hit her face, she reacts at close to range and counters by shattering his weapon. The match is over, and even with Win's absolute best effort, he is still no match for elite warrior skills. Veronica shows her enthusiasm. She couldn't believe he managed to pull a fast one on her like that. What she used back then was a magic sword to counter him. This whole time, she thought he was just a healer who could use physical attacks. But this is different. The boy's current combat skills are near the top of the rankings, but Win, as always, isn't satisfied with his progress. She respects his ambition and determination to get stronger and understands that buffing himself isn't his end goal. I'll admit, you're trying to strip away your physical limits, but that won't be enough, as proven in their match today. The professor gives another analogy, saying a sword's purpose isn't just for swinging. Normally it can stab or even be thrown. Healing magic should have similar applications. Unfortunately, Win has been thinking along those same lines, but he can't quite figure it out. The beautiful swordswoman explains that what he's lacking is actual combat experience. In fact, he lacks the intuition to define what fighting really means. From Veronica's perspective, experience trumps knowledge when applied correctly. Even in their current battle, Win noticed a little something she had used. Catching her drift, Win asks if he should go for more sparring sessions with the professor. Veronica likes that mindset, but suggests he join a mission instead. A monster subjugation training. The boy is stunned. Finally, he'll have a first-hand experience in a life-or-death situation. He actually participated in a joint competition between the three academies, Swat, Halik, and Jinburn. All three academies pride themselves on their styles of defense, and swordsmanship. Their students are expected to carry out subjugation requests at the Halik Academy. The boy didn't participate in that specific mission, but this time, he has the chance to slay nightmare monsters and grind experience to stop the upcoming apocalypse. Win makes up his mind for his first subjugation mission. Veronica looks at him with amusement, reminding him of the entry requirements. The boy must prove his worth in the selection exam, and there's a rumor about a prodigy going viral among the first-year students. The new goal for Win is to secure the top spot during the selection process, compared to his classmates. He asks for details about the selection exam. It's a simple criterion. The candidates will duke it out with each other. There are usually 100 volunteers, showing off their skills, picking only the best of the best. Even our boy is starting to get fed up with how the school constantly harps on fighting. Back at the Halik Healer Academy, a few volunteers stepped up to join. That means anyone could join the mission, but this is a different format. SWAT Academy boasts a rigorous selection process. Win looks back on fond memories at the Healer Academy. He wonders how his old master is doing now. Veronica circles back to the prodigy student, whose power level far exceeds some of the instructors. This means Win won't have an easy time snagging that top spot. This makes him wonder if the assistant professor has met this student in person yet. Unfortunately, she's never had the chance to meet the kid because he loves dodging the teachers, acting like he's way too good for them. He hasn't even come to her with a single question. But that's not even mentioning how terrifying she can be. Either way, Veronica promises Win that she'll help him train for the exam. This instantly boosts his mood, since she is his only shot at actually leveling up. Cut to the day of the selection exam. Win steps into the arena, realizing just how fast time has flown by. He feels more confident than ever, now that all his preparations are complete. As he's walking around, a voice calls out his name. It's the president of the Annalum Magic Academy Alliance. The headmaster is delighted to report that his granddaughter has been recovering steadily ever since his treatment. The president even apologizes for not looking out for the boy more, considering he saved his granddaughter's life. Win explains that, while he struggled a bit at first with the academy's challenges, he's now fully settled in with zero issues. In fact, he's determined to take the top spot in the selection exam. Such a lofty goal impresses the president. A buzzkill interrupts their conversation. An instructor thinks Win's words are a total joke. He thinks this brat is seriously underestimating his class, and by the way, Bode is also the field training supervisor for this event. Interestingly, Win met this guy in his past life. Bode is known as the Purple Lightning, famous for his incredible hero-level achievements during the Great War. Unfortunately, these two never clicked, and even now it's the exact same story. The buff mage frowns and threatens the healer, reminding him that this world is crawling with combat geniuses. Compared to that, simple training is nothing. He openly disses Win, claiming a healer like him hasn't got a prayer. The boy doesn't say a word, while the president suggests they settle their beef during the exam, instead of before it. The instructor grumbles that he's just schooling the brat, and emphasizes that the real winner of this exam will be Sirius from his own class. This young man is straight up a copy-paste character from Genshin Impact. Sirius Blue Note is the prodigy everyone's hyping up with high expectations, and he's also the one our boy is destined to face off against to claim the top spot in the selection exam. The competition is cutthroat, and the president is hyped, seeing them just staring each other down. Wasting no time, the contestants enter the arena, amidst a crowd cheering for an epic showdown. Win and Erica are in the second row at the front, and the healer expresses his surprise at seeing her participate. Unfortunately, she has to join, or she'll lose her scholarship perks at the academy. Even Unpissed is glaring at our boy from a distance, while the president officially congratulates the contestants for making it this far and hopes the best mages win. The first round will be the preliminaries. This round will thin out most of the pack, leaving only the elites for the official selection round. Basically, this means all of them will be duking it out at the same time. 100 students facing off against one another. The space is way too cramped for their battle, but don't sweat it, because the president used his own domain expansion to transport them to a completely different dimension. The students can't even wrap their heads around where they've been teleported, while the old man stands at the edge of the dimension and scatters them to various locations. Win gets warped into a forest right behind the academy. Once all students have been teleported, the headmaster announces that they've all been placed in random locations. The goal is to cooperate wisely and avoid opponents who are too strong. All starting positions are based on pure luck. Win is standing here in awe at the president's incredible teleportation skills, since the old man just warped all of them at once. And just like that, the field training exam begins. First things first, our boy leaps onto a tree branch before activating a stealth spell to mask his presence. This way, he'll hide his presence and move stealthily, playing it safe against the other contestants. Looking back, he actually sees 3 students facing off. One of them uses a mighty earth golem, which looks quite a bit like a Pokemon, while that girl has a giant fairy hammer. The 2 of them are so busy fighting each other that they forget about the third attacker, a woman who freezes them right in their tracks. Win is impressed to see the range of skills other offensive mages possess, and believes there's a lot he can learn from them beyond just wanting the top spot. He likes what he just saw and plans to remix it into his own skill set. The fight ends, and the last one standing is the golem user. They're celebrating winning an epic battle, while in the meantime, our boy shows up and pulls a sneak attack. Win grabs his head and activates consciousness lockdown, knocking him out instantly. Think of it like a mini version of Gojo's unlimited void. It's Gojo then. With this ability, Win can manipulate his opponent's life force and force them into unconsciousness. But he needs to maintain a firm grip, otherwise the move won't work properly. This is a technique he learned from Veronica during their training sessions. Lost in thought, Win almost misses an attack lunging toward him. He dodges a flurry of daggers and immediately realizes it's that same brain-dead idiot again. This time, that brat even brought some friends along. Unpissed believes he's just trying to pass this exam, like every other student, but he has the upper hand in numbers in this 3-on-1 situation. Activating dagger creation magic, one lackey coats his daggers in poison while the final lackey uses shadow clone magic to multiply them even further. With these poison-tipped blades, even a tiny scratch could mean curtains for the boy. Blocking them is completely out of the question. Dozens of blades fly toward Win, hunting him down as they close in. He thinks about neutralizing the poison with recovery magic, but dealing with that many daggers seems like a major pain even with body reinforcement. Backed into a corner, he decides to bust out a brand new move. An unexpected obstacle pops up in front of him, shielding Win from the knives. Unpissed is shook to see that stone golem now serving a new master. The cool thing about recovery magic is that it can be used on other living beings. This stone golem has the ability to move on its own, using the caster's blood. Though it can't pull off complex maneuvers, the healer can easily control it with a spell called pseudo-life transfer. The golem charges at that troublesome trio. First it punches one in the chest, then sits on another, probably giving him permanent back pain. With those 2 down, Unpissed starts to panic. He's toast because our boy speeds in like Minato Namikaze, grabs his face and knocks him out cold. The battle finally ends, and Win goes back into stealth mode, letting his golem lead the way on the battlefield, since his reinforcement techniques limit him to close combat. The best move is to use a golem to cover that obvious weakness. He can also safely scout everyone out this way. Suddenly, a massive tornado catches his eye. It's as if a natural disaster has just struck the forest. But no, this tornado is actually a Kamehameha wave, a blast that our boy barely managed to escape from. The attack literally leaves a scar on the ground, wiping out the golem as well as the remaining students, even leveling every tree in the vicinity. In the distance, Win spots a man. It's Sirius, the prodigy student. And I'm not even kidding, this dude looks more like the main character than our actual protagonist. Just one look and you can tell his power is terrifying. Win wonders if he should make a move against him, but suddenly the match is forced to an end. The headmaster praises each contestant's efforts, concluding the preliminary round. Only 4 remaining contestants will move on to the next round. The real competition will be held at the arena, so until then, the president advises the students to rest, while he activates the teleportation magic. As the teleportation magic kicks in, Sirius, a very serious guy, is seriously glaring, with a serious face toward our seriously serious protagonist. Audio content produced by VB.VN. Win must find the will to defeat this guy in a single day. Both of them vanish and return home. Our bookworm is busy doing his homework, strategizing for the exam. Right outside his room, Unpissed and his low-tier gang show up once again. They're absolutely livid after being clapped every single time they challenge the healer. But Unpissed is a sore loser, a total scumbag. He cares about his noble family's pride and wants to protect the Omen clan's honor against a lowly healer. What worries him most is his father finding out about the whole ordeal. However, his friends don't have the guts to tag along. They ditch him, leaving him to clean up his own mess. Unpissed panics and eventually boils over with rage, declaring he has a way to get rid of the healer, without even using magic. Meanwhile, our boy is just chilling in his room. Audio content produced by VB.VN. Suddenly, Win hears a knock on his door at a weird hour. He gets up to answer it, already sensing a bad vibe. Unmistakably, it's Unpissed at the door, who's putting on this whole cheesy noble act and greeting him warmly. Win is suspicious and isn't buying his acting skills for a second. But the Golden Boy Noble claims he's just here to talk. He expresses his sheer hatred for healers, saying he's done everything possible to get Win kicked out of the academy. Clearly, our boy has flipped the script in every situation, and outplayed him time and time again. But now Unpissed has come with a personal message. His polite facade vanishes as he orders the kid to leave the academy. Yeah, so much for that trashy performance. Win is actually starting to respect how dedicated this guy is to hating, like he just can't let it go for even a second. Unpissed brags about being a prestigious member of a noble house, and how he can't stand healers just sitting around. Even his own brother was as weak as a healer. Everyone mocked him, and he just took it with a smile. Combat mages have pride, while regular healers are just pathetic and pitiful. This is the dark reality rooted in most noble families' teachings, a system built on torment. Unpissed insists on forcing Win to leave just by talking it out. But Win isn't about to say, "Sure thing, buddy, thanks, I'll drop out." So he turns him down. The noble was prepared for that, and emphasizes that he knows about Win's family. With his servants and outside connections, the noble discovered that Win has a little sister. The two of them share a very close bond. With just one order, his servants could easily take out the boy's sister, if he wanted. Now things have gotten way more intense. Win's usual cool demeanor vanishes, and he goes straight for the guy's throat before slapping him, face first into the ground. Then he circles around, and twists his arm into a position where it could easily snap. Win reminds his dear noble that he's already made up his mind. And as Unpissed whimpers like a dog, his arm lets out a loud crack, leaving him a blubbering mess. The noble is still hell-bent on revenge, claiming the academy won't let him off the hook for breaking his arm. But here's the kicker. The dude forgot that Win is actually a healer. It's all patched up now, which also means it can happily be snapped all over again. Snap. That's round 2, sending Unpissed spiraling into pure agony. Win heals him again, and the game continues. The noble begs for mercy, but snap goes the arm again. The break and heal loop just keeps on going. Win cheerfully says he's standing his ground. Threatening his sister was a line that this loser should have never crossed. Snap, snap, and snap. The arm gets broken non-stop, until Unpissed's spirit is completely shattered. Now he finally gets that this kid isn't just some healer. He's a modern-day Satan. Just like the reality check the instructor got, the noble was taught a painful lesson, not to mess with him ever again. That night, Win sends the noble off with a cheerful goodbye, as if nothing happened. Our boy doesn't feel an ounce of regret. He even feels pretty good before hitting the hay. The next day, the main tournament is underway. Everyone in the arena is watching the matches with keen interest. Specifically, the 4 who passed the first round are slated to face off against each other. One of them happens to be Erica herself, who went way beyond Win's expectations. Apparently, she just locked herself behind walls of fire, so no one dared to get close. In short, the girl didn't even have to move, and won without a fight. But something's off. Win doesn't think that's the whole story. She asks him to go easy on her, but this guy isn't a simp, and plans to give it his all. Erica expresses that she's aiming for a much higher rank after she beats him, and so their epic showdown begins. Her opening move is a blazing fireball. Win counters this fire attack by tanking it head-on. It was a simple fire spell, nothing special about it at all. Even his healing magic could easily regenerate any wounds without breaking a sweat. This basic attack made him underestimate Erica, until he realized something was very wrong. The spell that just hit him wasn't just a simple strike, it was a trap. Erica kept up the same offensive, spamming fireballs one after another. But there's something unique about her flames. They don't go out. It's like this girl learned Amaterasu from Itachi and copied his whole style. Even though her raw power is low, their burn time is insane. Even if he maintains active recovery, the tick damage will eventually wear him down. This observation lines up with before, when he borrowed her flame to cheese his way through the basic offensive magic exam. This also explains why no other contestant could get near her when she used firewall, because the flames literally won't die out. Erica's fire is a manifestation of her stubbornness and the sudden reveal of her true skill as the crowd's full attention. Truth be told, they're only rooting for her because they want to see our boy lose. An air of arrogance washes over her, realizing she might actually sweep the prelims and even take down a powerhouse like Win. Planning a counterattack, our boy casually puts out the fire after doubling his healing output. She tries the same trick, but this time Win is ready. He knows her flames won't go out, so he grabs them on purpose, using them to buff his own offensive power instead. This is some genius-level battle IQ, because now the healer has flaming fists to buff his own attacks. Just as Erica is about to get wrecked, she suddenly throws up her hands and forfeits the match. Fortunately, she didn't get hurt, and the announcer declares, "Our boy the winner of the bout." Sadly, his evaluation score won't change much, even after the fight. The same crowd that was rooting for Erica earlier now turns their backs on her, calling her a fraud of an offensive mage. The poor girl has been a support type her whole life and crumbled under the weight of expectations. But her best friend helps her back up, emphasizing how well she actually fought. He even heals her wounds, winning her heart in the process. That sweet romance is shattered when Professor Bode steps onto the stage, calling for a hard stop. Pointing a finger at the healer, he truly sees Win as total trash, and he's absolutely livid that an offensive mage would forfeit to someone like him. His harsh words terrify poor Erica, leaving Win to wonder if this is even appropriate behavior for an instructor. The supervisor flexes his position, insisting his role is to tell the truth, exactly as it is, which he considers encouraging. But as he leaves, he confirms to our boy that there will only be one successful candidate from the tournament. The man in question then approaches the healer. It's Sirius. Sternly, the two of them have a brief exchange. Sirius doesn't even bother to look at him while talking. He's the type who only believes in raw power and agrees with the instructor's worldview. Bode, the healer, has no problem with that, except the prodigy has one final thing to admit. He actually acknowledges the healer is strong. But at the same time, Sirius intends to prove his own philosophy is right by crushing him in their match. Let's take a look at the prodigy's talent. Win recalls hearing his name in his past life, a guy with offensive magic at a straight-up insane level. Someone with absolutely overwhelming victories, where nothing and no one could stand in his way, unless they wanted to be burnt to a crisp. The final match between Sirius and Win is about to go down. Given the current situation, he realizes the Academy will only give him props if he beats the prodigy right here. So his only goal is to secure the win. The finals kick off with Sirius unleashing an overwhelming tornado right from his spot. The attack takes up way too much space, forcing Win to play it safe and dodge. Striking back with his limit-breaking speed, Win charges in at lightning speed, going all out to reach the prodigy. But before he can close the gap, Sirius unleashes a full-power wind blast, keeping him at bay, which is a major problem for the healer. He can't land a finishing blow without getting up close and personal. The two forces of nature continue their confrontation. Sirius and Win face off, and as Sirius keeps an eye on his speed, he raises his hand and lets out a violent gust of wind, aimed straight at his opponent. He realizes the tornado from before was nothing compared to this blast, which could blow away the entire area. He struggles to stand his ground, but now's the time for his trump card. He slams his hands onto the ground, and a massive tree begins to sprout. While Erica and the crowd are stunned by this magic, the healer knows he's leveled up. A while back, he showed Professor Veronica this skill and explained that he injected life force into the tree to make it grow rapidly helping it flourish. He had researched offensive magic that could manipulate plants, and decided to give it a shot. With this skill, he wanted to adjust his tactics accordingly. Suddenly, he started to collapse and Professor Veronica caught him. He was shocked by the sudden mana drain, since the books didn't mention that this was such a high-level technique. Veronica managed to figure it out, explaining that destroying is easier than healing, because healing burns way more mana than offensive magic, and mimicking offensive magic with healing spells is probably the most inefficient way to use your mana. Knowing the drawbacks of this skill, he planned to save it for when it really counts. Back to the present. He uses this skill on the battlefield. Since his basic offensive magic is kind of mid, he decides to bank on this move once the tree finishes growing. Sirius used a wind blade to chop it down, which throws him for a loop. Because Sirius's magic includes tornadoes that can swallow enemies and storms that can wipe out a massive area. His wind blades are for solid objects, while the tornadoes handle anyone trying to get close by concentrating around him. Win realizes Sirius is called the top seed for a reason, but he has also set his sight on buffing himself with this magic and charges at Sirius. Immediately, his opponent creates a tornado around himself and talks down to him, saying that he's untouchable no matter what Win tries. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. The second he touches the tornado, he gets blown away. Sirius smirks, but suddenly he realizes something is very wrong. He looks at his shoulder and sees it's been skewered by a wooden shard. Confusion is written all over his face as he demands an explanation. Win confidently reveals his strategy. He knew that Sirius couldn't protect the ground beneath his feet, so the underground tree spread its roots in every direction, and that's how he got stabbed in the shoulder. Our MC wonders if he's worried about Professor Bode, since their personalities are total opposites. While Sirius groans in pain, Sirius explains that the instructor mentors him because he's powerful. He tosses more questions his way, knowing he comes from a prestigious family. Sirius reveals the truth about his household. Magical ability matters more than anything else. The strongest becomes the head of the house, regardless of other factors like gender or age matters. This created enemies within his own family, where everyone is fighting for power, and even his own father refused to teach him. For Sirius, obeying the instructor is the only way to truly gain strength and authority. Then, he focuses all of his mana once again, shocking the entire crowd, including our main character. A dragon formed from pure mana appears, and Sirius declares they're ending this right now. The dragon targets him, making him realize this is no joke. A while ago, Win used to think that offensive mages had it way easier, which made him want to grind even harder, but he's been wrong this whole time. He suddenly realizes that talent isn't the only thing that determines superiority. Things like bloodline, natural gift, and one's past all play their part. All of this leads him to declare to Sirius that he wants to take him down in this fight. Sirius is thrown off by the sudden declaration. Win slams his hand onto the ground, preparing to use his special seed, and once again grows a tree called Grisol. The tree grows at high speed, burning through more mana than usual. However, the upside is that it keeps growing, as long as he keeps pouring mana into it. Sirius attacks with a wind blade, chopping the tree in half once more, and sending it flying into the air. But when he looks up, a single flying branch has already sprouted into a massive tree, and it's diving straight at him. Meanwhile, Win figures that since Sirius's magic is tied up maintaining the wind dragon, he won't have enough time to defend himself. That assumption turns out to be right, and the tree slams into Sirius. When he looks up, he sees Win standing there with a knife pointed at him. Reflecting on it, he realizes he's lost. Win is declared the winner. The crowd goes wild because they never expected Sirius to take an L. They're all buzzing about the insane power the MC possesses. Then the hero reaches out to help Sirius up, praising his strength. But Sirius just sounds defeated. He tries to reassure him, admitting that it was a great match. Suddenly, Professor Bode steps in, clearly disappointed in Sirius despite his power. He kicks the tree off him and shocks him right in the hip. He drags him away, furious that Sirius let him down, declaring that his training is going back to square one. The whole crowd goes silent knowing how harsh this sounds. Bode turns to the crowd, yelling that this applies to everyone. Livid, he can't believe a mere healer actually took first place. Win realizes that Bode's rage is getting way out of hand. He starts sticking up for Sirius, saying his power was legit, and that losing doesn't mean he's weak, by any stretch. As he tries to keep defending his opponent, Bode snaps at him to shut his mouth. Then Bode starts walking toward him, mocking him for standing up for Sirius. He tosses Sirius aside and calls Win a fool, stating that in a fight, only raw power delivers the results that matter. Overcome by emotion, he declares that losing makes a person nothing more than trash to be thrown away. Win is disturbed by how harshly Bode talks about his own student. He starts arguing that being a teacher doesn't give Bode the right to say whatever he wants. Bode's eyes flash with fury as he tries to break Win's spirit. He says he'll soon be tossed aside with the weaklings, because being a healer is worthless. He continues to taunt him by pointing out the massive drop in his mana levels, which catches him completely off guard. Bode adds that the weak are just parasites, who get the strong killed. Being called a deadweight triggers a flashback for him, to a time when he was abused by Bode for not being strong enough. Even back then, he tried to stand his ground, insisting that healers support others with their magic. He shouted, trying to prove his point, that the world needs healers to maintain balance. Otherwise, humanity would perish. Bode let go of him, remembering how his students once stood at the front, lines to buy time for the rear to escape, only to be wiped out by low-level monsters. At the escape point, His students died with nowhere left to run, and Bode watched helplessly, knowing he couldn't heal them. He clenched his fists and screamed that Sirius shouldn't die because of such trash. From a practical standpoint, the professor isn't entirely wrong. If you're weak, you'll eventually end up dead anyway, so everyone has to train to survive. However, there comes a time when monsters get even more savage, and when that happens, the strong can't afford to be selfish. For moments like those, even those without talent must know how to fight. Back to the present, he challenges the professor, hoping it will force him to show some respect. Bode mocks him but accepts the challenge, confident that a mere healer can't possibly win. Hearing this, the referee panics and asks if Bode is actually serious about this match. Bode proudly bends the rules to suit himself. With no other choice, the referee leads Sirius away as a special exhibition match between Win and Bode is announced. A few moments later, the match begins. Bode cracks his knuckles, flexing that he's going to show our boy just how weak he is. With the tiny amount of mana he has left, Win is anxious as he faces off against the toughest opponent he's seen in a long time. He starts planning his moves carefully, since this is no ordinary duel. As he gets ready to make his move, Bode shouts out a taunt, calling our boy slow before unleashing an attack. The magical fire is intense enough to light up the whole arena. Then he brags about teaching him the 3 reasons why his victory is a done deal. An insane amount of mana radiates from him as he drops the first reason, positional advantage and range to suppress the enemy. The second reason is speed to keep them from acting. The third reason is power, to finish them off in a single blow. As Bode prepares to continue, he mocks him, suggesting the protagonist probably can't even hear him anymore. At that moment, our boy stands back up, asking where that one-hit finisher power went. Despite being visibly injured, the kid is still standing tall. Knowing the professor uses unique lightning magic, he has to save himself from the electrical damage. He must somehow avoid a direct hit to his internal organs. He knows his skills will be useless if his brain or heart are targeted, because his healing magic won't be fast enough. For that specific reason, he created a blood vessel that acts as a conductor. He stabs his own arm with a knife, so when the current hits the blade, it passes through his limbs and grounds into the earth, minimizing the damage he takes. Even so, enduring electrical attacks is brutal. Now it's time for our boy to launch a counterattack. Bode looks down on him, saying he actually feels sorry for him, knowing he's just barely tanking the hits then begins to magically buff his body, but suddenly realizes he can't channel power through his own body. Bode reveals that his purple lightning paralyzes its victims, leaving them unable to move. Win realizes he might be in deep trouble and raises his hands again as another attack charges toward him. In a completely egomaniacal way, Bode intends to keep burning through his remaining mana. He wants to see just how many hits the MC can actually tank. Bode unleashes an attack that leaves the crowd shook, while our boy continues to endure it, fully aware that the professor's unique magic is truly powerful and flawless. This only feeds the man's ego even more. As the protagonist refuses to give up, he decides he's going to win this, pouring all his remaining mana and stamina into manipulation. He slams his hands onto the ground, and instantly a water guardian tree begins to sprout. This type of tree can absorb a massive amount of water from the soil and store it. So when used as a barrier, the electrical current is easily dispersed. However, fate has other plans. Bode manages to cleave the tree with his lightning strike, shocking the entire crowd. Our boy is stunned as Bode starts walking toward him, convinced the protagonist has run out of options. But as Bode looks at the fallen tree, he sees mushrooms starting to grow at a rapid pace. This actually catches him off guard. Our boy feels a quiet sense of relief. His technique actually worked. It's a fact that mushrooms sprout fast after a lightning strike. When a forest is hit by lightning and turned into a wasteland, it creates a chance for growth without any competition, and mushrooms are among the first to show up. But that's not the only edge they provide. They also cause body paralysis, and Bode just experienced that firsthand. He panics and our boy seizes the opening, knowing that the gap between him and his opponent has finally closed. He puts everything into his fist and lunges straight at Bode. But Bode dodges and lands a clean blow to the gut. Our boy is reeling. He reveals that he's also skilled in close-quarters combat, and his unique magic allows him to control electricity even further. He says that if he buffs his body with electricity to boost his movement speed, when that paralysis trick meant absolutely nothing. Lying on the ground, clutching his chest, Win can't accept the fact that he might not win. With a smug look, Bode winds up a fist, declaring himself the winner of the match. But before he can throw the punch, someone shuts him down. Turning around, he sees Professor Veronica has drawn her sword. He tries to brush her off, telling her not to stick her nose in other people's business, especially since she's just a rookie. Our boy is trembling, but a glimmer of hope appears when he sees Veronica. She argues that the outcome of the match is already clear, and beating the boy any further would only cause unnecessary pain. Bode tries to justify himself, claiming that Win is a healer and can just heal himself. Veronica stands up for our boy, saying he has no mana left after going all out in the previous matches. Losing his cool, Bode tries to attack again, thinking Veronica simply lacks the guts to follow through. Veronica immediately channels energy into her blade, and both of them charge at each other to strike. Suddenly, the principal appears and shuts down the squabble. He steps between them, stopping Bode in his tracks, and apologizes to Veronica for not explaining the situation sooner. He announces the end of the selection exam and orders everyone to clear the area. As the students start to disperse, our boy tries to heal himself but fails, having completely tapped out his mana. Veronica pulls Win into her arms, reassuring him that he did a great job. She urges him to rest and not push it too hard. But these comforts aren't enough for him. The next day, he takes a walk through the campus, reflecting on the power gap. He still can't wrap his head around how humanity could be doomed, even with such powerful people around. And so he's determined to get even stronger. Win enters the room and the principal is stoked to see him. Noticing that your wounds have significantly healed, our boy explains that once his mana returns to him, the healing process is almost instantaneous. The principal figures that Win won't have any trouble at all with field training, which takes the protagonist by surprise. He then goes on to explain that since Win ranked first in the selection exam, he has passed. Alongside him, Sirius and Erica have also passed. Win asks for an explanation, since Bode had previously said that everyone had failed. The principal explains that this happens every year to make the students believe they're in a crisis, sparking a sense of urgency in them, even though some are eventually let through. Because field training involves such high stakes, Bode had to play the part of a strict teacher, and though harsh, it served its purpose. In his previous life, Bode was constantly on the front lines for humanity and was one of the heroes who tried to save mankind from extinction. The principal then urges the protagonist to form a party with students from other academies as an attacker, so he can take on actual monster subjugation quests. This makes Hui realize that this will be the first time he faces the primary monsters, the very creatures that were the direct cause of humanity's extinction in his past life. These beings, possessing magical power, are known as monsters, but not every monster is inherently a threat to humanity. Some might attack humans, but usually just for their own survival. If their ecological behaviors are properly researched, they could be treated as neighbors instead of being seen as enemies. However, 2 years from now, the world is destined to change. Under the influence of the Red Moon, monsters exposed to the Red Moon will turn savage, and various species of supermonsters will begin to unite with a single goal to completely wipe out humanity. Then 2 years after that disaster, the Demon King himself will descend. This series of events will put mankind at a total disadvantage, causing nations to collapse and leading to countless casualties. Combat mages will be called to the front lines, but since the situation will spiral out of control, they will continue to fall alongside the knights. Even healer mages will be slaughtered once the front lines are breached, leaving no one left to support the wounded. By the time the protagonist died in his past life, hardly anyone was left with the capacity to fight. If everyone just keeps living on, without changing a thing, humanity will no longer be able to exist. He can't let a tragedy like that happen again. He vows to strengthen himself, to surpass anyone from his past life, so he can withstand the massive monster invasion. Furthermore, he wants to uncover the real cause behind the Red Moon that drove the monsters into a frenzy, hoping to strike the disaster at its source. The principal notices the determination burning in his eyes and is deeply impressed. He sees Win's behavior as promising and wonders if the teachers are being cautious enough regarding the upcoming field training. The principal reassures him that proper measures are in place, but makes it clear he wants to specifically foster Win's development. Later, while standing outside the school grounds with Veronica, Bode approaches the protagonist. When Win tries to show he understands the reasons behind Bode's behavior, Bode yells at him again and storms off. However, before leaving, he tells Win to give it his all during the training session. Then as soon as he turns away, he quietly thanks him for healing Sirius. The person standing behind him also steps up and thanks Win. He says that now he can overcome his own weaknesses and become stronger than ever before. As long as you're still kicking, you know you can finally get your revenge. And this time it won't just vanish into thin air. The protagonist urges him to get even stronger, and the two of them dap each other up in silent agreement. To Win, the emergence of more talented attack mages is a major flex because they will be invaluable allies in the upcoming battles against the monsters. As soon as they set off in a carriage, after a while, they are told that Danko Forest is getting close, and the training session details will soon be reviewed. Veronica explains that they will be fighting goblins as part of their assigned mission in Danko Forest. She proceeds to brief 3 trainees from Swarth, Halex, and Jinburn. Then she turns to Win and says that he will be forming a 4-man squad, supported by a teacher from one of the academies. Erica asks if the squad members have been decided yet, and Veronica reassures her that she'll be teamed up with him. Even though Erica finds Veronica scary, she still thinks this is way better than being paired with a total stranger. A bit later, they are notified that they have arrived. As they step out of the carriage, Veronica notices that the trainees from Jinburn have already reached the area. The protagonist reflects that in his past life, he didn't have many acquaintances or connections. Suddenly, a girl rushes over and pulls Win into a hug, exclaiming that she really wanted to see him. The protagonist is startled, totally confused as to who this girl is. She quickly introduces herself as Mary Gogrand, principal of Swarth Academy, and the granddaughter of Anaram Gogrand. The hero is completely shook by her introduction, since he remembers her clearly from his past life. He never expected to run into the girl he treated at the principal's house again, especially in this forest. Seeing her again makes him wonder how she's been, and she quickly reassures him that she's doing fine. Almost immediately, she starts apologizing, saying she couldn't thank him properly back then. The right way. He casually brushes it off, telling her it's no big deal. But she's pressed about returning the favor by doing something for him. Then she explains that she has zero magic talent at all, so instead, she enrolled in Rubert Academy and went all in on learning swordsmanship. Thanks to her non-stop grind, she became the top-ranked student in the Academy's entrance exam. She giggles at the protagonist's impressed look. He's truly moved by her achievement, because just a few months ago she was bedridden. Yet in such a short time, she rose to the top. Grabbing his hand, she says they've been placed in the same squad, based on their individual talents, and she'll do her best to prove she's helpful to him. At that moment, he finally gets what the principal really meant about looking after her. Before he can think more, she suddenly drags him off to greet the trainees just in from Helix. Watching from the sidelines, Veronica and Erica are shook by how friendly and cozy they are when they're together. Outside the carriage from Helix, Mary asks if Olin and Turf are inside. Olin quickly hops out, calmly saying there's no need to rush. He happily greets everyone, revealing he's the teacher assigned to their squad. Olin is a teacher at Helix Academy, and in Win's past life, Olin was the greatest healer mage of his era. Realizing he's now on the same team as him, Win is filled with pure joy. Then, Turf also steps out of the car and Mary introduces herself to him. However, Turf freezes up when he notices the two of them holding hands. Of course, he demands an introduction to the protagonist. Win introduces himself, and Turf immediately assumes he's an attack mage. Olin then tells the trainees that they're free to do whatever they want, and he'll just keep an eye on them. This chill attitude takes all the students by surprise. Win approaches Olin and asks if he can call him master. Olin asks why, and Win explains that he also uses healing magic, but has never had a proper mentor to help him train and perfect it. He then asks if Olin would be willing to teach him. Olin says he's heard of Win before, and readily agrees to show him a thing or two about healing magic. Mary chases after them, insisting that she should also be allowed to call Olin master if Win is doing it. From the sidelines, Veronica observes that the squad seems to be vibing really well. Later, when the conquest mission is assigned, each squad is instructed to operate using a hut as their base of operations. The area where goblins were reported is deep in the forest, so Olin, Mary, and Win decide to head there immediately. Meanwhile, Turf the healer is ordered to stay at the base, keeping away from the front lines according to traditional rules. As they head toward the goblin sighting area, Mary asks if Win is really intending to play the role of a frontline healer. He calmly replies, telling her not to worry about him. He explains that instead, he'll act as the team's overseer, allowing them to fight freely, while he keeps a close watch on everything. Hearing him out, they both accept that for an overseer, there are no strict rules. They immediately start hunting down the goblins. With one swift move, Mary wipes out a whole pack of goblins at once. The protagonist can hardly believe his eyes, remembering how she was bedridden just a few months ago.